Well now, are you settled? Welcome back to Celticism, your place to come to for ghost stories told in the dark. For now, settle yourself, find a place where you can rest, where nothing is asked of you, and nothing is needed but quiet. And here's the little trick. Don't close your eyes just yet. Let them soften, let the shapes blur, let the shadows in the corner dance in their own way. And when you're ready, the lids will fall heavy on their own. If these whispered stories bring you comfort, tap the like button, subscribe, and share this with someone you think might enjoy stories told in the dark. Every little tap and share helps the channel more than you'd think, and I'd love for this to be your nightly resting place. For now, let's begin tonight's tale. A tale called Sweet Dreams, My Love. There was a winter hush on the house. A small wind worked at the eaves. Candles put a soft yellow on the walls and left the corners dark. Mary stood by the cot and held her baby. Michael was heavy with sleep. His warm cheek lay in the crook of her arm. She swayed a little side to side, the old habit. She leaned down and laid him in the cot. Her hand rested on the bars. Her fingers traced the wood once, slow. Her face shifted, unsettled, but only for a breath. Then she kissed Michael's forehead and tucked the blanket close. Footsteps came along the passage, slow and gentle, and the door opened with a hush. Her mother stood there, Nora, a bright smile, back bent from years, knuckles swollen and crooked, a shawl over her shoulders. "Oh, can I hold him, love?" she said, her hands already halfway. Mary smiled back, though it sat tight. "Ah, not just now, ma'am. I'm putting him down soon." "Ah, please," Nora said, stepping closer, smile wide. "I'll be gentle, one little hold." "No, ma'am," Mary said, warm but firm. "He's tired now. I'm just putting him to rest." Nora's smile never shifted. "Oh, that's fine so," she said, her fingers flexed once, slow and stiff. "Sleep well, little lamb." She turned from the room. Mary followed with her eyes, watching the way the smile stayed stuck to her face. And then Mary left after a minute, door left open a crack. Michael blinked up at the ceiling. Candlelight bent and swayed, making soft shapes, and the house hushed. Minutes stretched, then footsteps again. The slice of light across the floor grew long. Nora passed the door, eyes front, smile bright and frozen. She didn't look in. Her shadow slid by and was gone. Silence settled. Then again, the other way, steps even, smile unchanged, eyes still ahead, not a glance toward the cot. The passings felt like a song half remembered, a lullaby gone wrong. Michael's fists opened and closed. His eyes followed the strip of light. Again, her shape came, her head white against the dark, drifting past. And again, this time slower, her shawl brushing the doorframe, but her eyes never turning toward him. The candles quivered each time, as though it felt her pass. A new sound came, not steps, a scuffle, quick and low. For a breath, a white head scuttled past on all fours, hair wild, shawl dragging, then gone. The candle trembled. Silence again, and then a hand, thin, knotted, nails chipped. It slid around the door frame and waved once the way a clown might wave at a child, a small, wrong sort of wave, then vanished. Another pause. Then she passed a third time, same stiff walk, same smile. She didn't turn into her room. She just went on, down the hall. Steps faded where the candlelight died. The house held its breath. From just outside the door came a sound, wet, heavy breaths. Each one thick as though pulled through water, then stillness, then breaths again. Michael's eyes fixed on the crack of light. His legs twitched under the blanket. The breaths came closer, then stopped, close enough to touch, close enough to hear the wet at the back of the throat. Suddenly, a head poked around the threshold, quick as a game of hide and seek. Nora's face, smile stretched wide, eyes now fixed straight on Michael. She lifted her hand and gave a little waggle of fingers. Then she giggled, high and girlish and strange, then slipped back into the dark. Michael's lips parted. A small sound came, almost a whimper. But he didn't cry. He only stared, wide-eyed, waiting for the dark to move again. Time stretched. Nothing moved. The candle flame burned lower. And then Nora came again, walking backwards into the room. Her shawl brushed the jamb. Her feet found the floor by memory. She lifted one hand high, holding a red ball. She wagged it once, not turning, still backwards. Then she tossed it gently over her shoulder, like a woman casting salt. The ball bounced once, rolled to the cot, and settled. Michael's eyes followed it, round, wide, and when he looked back up, the room was empty. The doorway open to nothing. A sound rose. At first it was only the wood speaking, but it grew thick and wet. A scrape, a saw, tongue on grain. Michael turned his head. Two white hands gripped the bars. Nora's hands, veins dark under thin skin, nails digging crescents into the wood. Her face pushed through the slats, eyes wide, candlelight burning in them, smiles stretched too far, teeth bared. She gnawed at the bar, dragging her teeth along it. Wood tore, spit shone. She bit harder again, chewing, grinding, eyes never leaving Michael's face. Her grin held, her fingers clawed the rail. Her teeth scraped and cracked at the cot. The wet sound filled the room. Michael's eyes shone. He breathed once sharp And the gnawing went on, and on, and on. Now, take a breath. Let your jaw go slack even more. Whatever shadows linger from that last story, let them soften, let them drift away, because you're safe. Your eyes grow heavy, your body grows light, and the night carries you deeper. Our next story awaits just ahead. And now for the next tale, a tale entitled The Drinking Contest. Matt Corbett had no business being out in the woods that night, not with the moon thin as a coin and the briars tugging at his boots, but there he was, tripping through the muck, chasing a sound like clicking fingers. It came first from behind him, then ahead, a rapid snap, 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 followed by a low laugh, wheezy and cruel. When he pushed through the clearing, he saw it, a figure no taller than his knee, long-limbed, wiry, with tattered green clothes and a ragged hood. Its face was thin and sharp, eyes too bright, mouth split wide with teeth too many and too pointed. This was, of course, a leprechaun. He danced in a little circle, fingers clicking, snapping, and his feet striking the earth as if he owned it. "Matting, me boy," he called, grinning. "You're late. I've near drunk the bark of the trees waiting on you." Matt stopped in his tracks. "I wasn't planning on drinking with the likes of you," he muttered. "Christ, what are you anyway?" The creature laughed, doubling over, slapping his own bony knee. "Ah, Matteen, I'm your worst night and your best crack rolled together. Sit yourself, we'll drink till your eyes water." A small table had appeared in the clearing, 2 little stools, and on it mugs brimming with froth. Matt stared at them, then back at the creature. "You set this up, did you?" "I set everything up," the leprechaun said with a wink. "Now, come on, man. You'll not walk away from a contest, will you?" Matt sighed and sat down heavy. "Grant, one drink, but if you start chewing on cats in front of me, I'm gone." The leprechaun burped, long and satisfied. "Too late for that, Matteen, my boy. Had myself a fine tabby not an hour past. Tender meat washes down well with stout." He licked his teeth, sharp and glistening. Matt grimaced. "Jesus, you're a sick little pup. And you're a coward with an empty mug, Matteen," the leprechaun shot back. They clashed their cups together and drank. The first few went down easy. Matt wiped his mouth with his sleeve. "Is that all you've got? My granny poured stronger." The leprechaun laughed. "You've the liver of a wet hen, Matteen. One more and you'll be under the table." "One more. I'll outlast you till Sunday morning." They drank again. The leprechaun slammed his cup down, foam spilling over his chin. "Tell me, Matteen, when I've won, and I will, do you walk home on your knees, or do I carry you on me back like a bairn?" Matt smirked. "When I win, you'll be the one crawling, snapping those crooked fingers for mercy." The creature let out a wheezing laugh, showing every jagged tooth. He leaned forward, whispering, "If I win, you're mine. I'll take your backside home with me. You'll scrub me pots, feed me 63 brothers, sing us to sleep each night." 63, Matt said. "That explains the smell off you." The leprechaun slapped the table, howling with laughter. "Oh, Matteen, me boy, you've a tongue on you. Shame it'll be chewing me scraps for the rest of your days." They drank, they jeered, the mugs clattered like bells in the night. Matt felt his head swim, but he saw the creature starting to sway, his grin slipping crooked. That gave Matt his chance. He leaned in close. You think you can keep this up, do you? I bet you can't even finish that one in one pull. The leprechaun sneered. I can drink faster than a man can breathe. Prove it so, Matt said, sliding another mug forward. You won't. You'll choke, watch. The leprechaun's eyes flared. Mattine, me boy, you'll regret that word. He seized the mug in both hands, tilted his head and drank. The froth spilled over his chin, down his rags pooling on the earth. He slammed the empty mug down, teeth bared. Another, Matt said smoothly, sliding one over. And another, and another. The leprechaun was lost to it now, each challenge a chain. His pride wouldn't let him stop. He kept drinking, jaw working, eyes watering. His clicking fingers faltered, his long legs wobbled under the stool. Matt watched, heart pounding, praying the bluff would hold. His own cup he only half filled, wetting his lips, setting it back down. The leprechaun let out a huge, wet belch, swaying like a crooked post. Mattine, boy, you're no coward after all. He slumped forward on the table, arms sprawled wide, hood falling over his face, and then silence. And Matt let out a long sigh. Thank Christ for that. And the next tale is called Time Goes By. I don't sleep, I don't wake. I'm here and I'm here and I'm here. Time goes by. And at first I thought it was the night that would end. I thought the door would open, a lamp would come, someone would say my name. They'd touch my shoulder and I'd rise like any other morning. I waited for that. I had that little hope, like coal and cold hands, but yeah, nobody came. The room kept its shape, the walls learned my outline, the floor learned the weight I no longer had. The air, if you can call it air, grew used to me. I listened to the clocks that weren't there. I counted the breaths I didn't take. I watched a spot on the wall fade and brighten with the hours, days, nights. It doesn't matter. Light moves, dark moves, the place doesn't. Sometimes the wind remembers the eves, sometimes the rain teaches the roof a slow song, sometimes the sun comes hard through the glass and makes the dust look like a summer in a jar. I learned all the ways the light walks the floor. I learned all the shadows by their first names. I had nothing else to learn. I tried to talk. Of course I did. You would too. I said, hello. I said, is anyone there? I said, please, please. No voice left me, not at first. Only the wish to be heard. That wish is louder than thunder when you have nothing else. I pushed it out of me. I flung it at the floor. I waited for the latch to stir. It didn't stir. And time goes by. You might ask, how long? You won't like the answer. Long enough for the paint to feel tired, long enough for the wood to remember every season, long enough for the room to keep me like a secret it's ashamed of. That long, longer even. Then one day, feet, real feet, heels, soles, the soft squeak of leather, a woman's voice, bright as a pin, walking before her in the dark, laughter with her, a man behind carrying the bags in the way of men who want to impress. Their breath was warm. It felt like a stove brought near. I thought, speak, now, speak. I thought it with everything I had. I had to shape my mouth around their names, but I I didn't know their names. I tried to shape a cry. A glass slid on the table. That was the first thing I did. Just a tremble, that was all. It moved a half an inch. The woman stopped talking, looked around. The man said, daft. He put his hand through the air like a net and caught nothing. He smiled. They went on. They set their bags down. I'd pushed the world, and the world had moved. Do you understand the joy of that, the shock? I had a drop of rain, and I'd found a way to make a circle in a still pond. I thought, this is how they'll hear me. I tried again. I set a chair to trembling. I made the door murmur in its frame. A spoon tapped like a tired bird. The woman held her breath. The man laughed. But his eyes didn't laugh. They went quiet. They went slow. Then they left the room with the bags and didn't come back till morning. They didn't see me. They didn't know me. They felt the edge of me. It was not nothing. I kept that. I held it close. And then time goes by. More people came, and I tried in better ways. I learned the small weights and how to shift them. I learned the hinges, the keyholes, the soft skin of flame. I learned that books like to fall in a certain way and that curtains know the languages of hands. I learned the polite ways to be present. I was careful. I didn't want to frighten them. I wanted them to know. I wanted one person to say, I hear you. I see you. Where are you? Tell me what you need. You can live a long time on that wish. You can starve a long time on it too. They talked about me, but not to me. Do you hear the difference? They said, there's something here. They said, did you feel that? They said, don't be daft. They said, it's only old air. They said, it's cold in that corner. They never said my name. They never asked me mine. So I tried harder. I made a picture tilt. I pressed a thumbprint in the fog on the pane. I drew a letter, then another, with the wet of nothing. It took an hour to make those lines. A breath moved the glass, and my letters ran like a child's tears. And when they came in, the pain was clear again. The letters were gone. I said, please, into a pillow. They slept and dreamed and loved and fought and laughed in the place where I did none of those things. They cooked meat, they burned bread, they told lies and truths. They opened windows, they closed them. They watched snow, they watched rain. They watched each other grow older a little. They did not watch me. Sometimes they brought candles and questions. They sat in the dark on purpose and held hands and whispered, are you there? Make a sign if you're there. I made signs, small ones, so I wouldn't hurt them. The candle shook, the table knocked. A coin turned on its edge and rolled toward them like a shy dog. They gasped. They said, did you feel that? Then I tried to do more, and the more I did, the more their faces broke. Fear swallowed their mouths, and they ran. Do you know what that does to a soul? To reach out with all you have, to be as gentle as the dead can be, and to be answered with a scream and a door. To watch that door again, to watch the lock click again, to hear the engine outside and the wheels on the gravel, to be left with the dust again and again as time goes by. I learned the house better than any map. I learned the nails, I learned the crooked places, I learned where light comes first and where it leaves last. I learned how the evening smells in June and how November sits on a sill like a crow. I learned which springs remember weight, I learned which boards remember names, I learned faces. They blur now, but some mornings I can call them back. A child with a missing tooth who turned and waved to the corner as if she'd seen me, and maybe she had. A man with a cough who talked kindly to the house as if it needed comfort, and maybe it did. A girl who slept with her mouth open and her hand on a book as if she was holding on to a small boat in a wide sea. I loved them. in my way, and I hated them in my way. I wanted to be all of them and none of them. I wanted to be the one who could go out the door and not have to ask for it. I tried to pray. You think that is a simple thing here. It's not. Prayers like to ride breath. Prayers like to be pushed by a chest and throat and a tongue. I had none, but I tried anyway. I made the shape of a prayer in my mind and sent it up like smoke. There was no roof for it to find. It rose until it felt like falling, and time goes by. If you stand long enough in a river, it eats the stones of you. The water of years wore me down, the edges of kindness smoothed into round, then into nothing. The patience thinned, the hope split like old cloth. I tell you this so you won't be surprised by what I became. I didn't wake one night and decide to be cruel. I was ground into it. I was taught it by neglect. The first time I didn't mean to frighten. I didn't mean to injure. Do you hear the care I still had? There were 3 of them and a night of talk, wine, laughter so loud the room felt too small for it. They told a story that was meant to be about me, that was about them instead, like all their stories. They said, knock if you're here. I knocked. They clapped. They said, do it again. I knocked again. They said, we're not scared. It's just the wind and old wood. They said my name wrong. I took the glass from the table and dropped it at the door. It broke. The sound went like a bright knife through the talk. The woman flinched. The man swore. The other man laughed, and then he didn't laugh. They stood. They said, enough. They said, it's late. They said, it's only a draught, for God's sake. They did not say, we're sorry, stay, tell us what you want. So I pushed the door. It slammed. I'd never meant to do that. The shock of it filled me. Power is a hot drink. I was dizzy with it. They ran. They left the light on and their breath in the room, and the smell of wine and their fear like a ribbon that trailed behind them. I was ashamed then. I was. I said to the empty room, I'm sorry. I said, I only wanted you to hear me. The apology lay on the floor until morning like a coat dropped in a hurry. No one picked it up. And after that, I understood the rule here. Gentleness is ignored. Fear is seen. Kindness is a whisper in a storm. And panic is a bell. I learned fear the way I learned the hinges. I learned how to come to the side of someone's sleep and show them the shape of a face in the dark, just enough for their heart to trip. I learned how to breathe where a breath should not be. I learned how to stand behind a mirror and be in the mirror, barely there, a smudge that looks like regret. I learned how to pull a picture down in the next room while you're alone in this one. I learned how to touch the back of a neck with nothing. They said it's evil. They said it's angry. They said it wants to hurt us. They were right. They made me so. Listen, there were still days when I tried to be better. A child would come, too tired to run, too kind to mock. I'd soften the bed for her. I'd keep the wind from the crack in the window. I'd hold the book open when she slept so her thumb didn't cramp. She'd wake and tell no one. She'd forget. I'd be left with my small deed like a crumb in a winter field. And then men with wires would come. They'd bring boxes that blinked, because blinking is how men think the dark will be made polite. They'd ask me questions in voices that sounded like men trying to sell something to their own fear. They'd say, tap once for yes, twice for no. I'd tap. They'd argue about the meaning. They'd sell the meaning later. They'd leave. I'd be left with the taps like a broken code in my mouth. Time goes by. The house changed its clothes. Paper came and went, paint came and went. The bed went, the bed returned. The bed grew brass feet and then lost them. The fire was a fire, then a stove, then another fire. The floorboards learned a new polish and forgot it. I stayed when the door was red, when the door was blue, when the door was a door, and when it was a plywood apology. I stayed when nobody came for winter. I stayed when a bus came and emptied laughter into every room. Someone once sat where I can never sit and said into the empty chair, "What do you want?" I had to think. It had been so long since anyone asked me the right thing. I wanted to say, I want to leave. I want to be done. I want to forgive. I want my name said like a blessing. I want one hand to pass through me now and know I'm here and be glad I'm here. I wanted to say, I want to go where the rest went. I want to go where the light does not need a window. What I said, what I could manage, was a door moved wide, slow, careful. It was the best I could do. It was a welcome in the only language I had left. The person who had asked stood up so fast their chair fell. They ran. Of course they did. I closed the door gently, as I knew how, and I let the latch kiss the strike plate like a goodbye no one hears. I grew hard. I grew mean. The room and I taught each other how to snarl. There was a night when a man came who was cruel in his own way. He laughed at the house and at the woman with him and at the past and at the future. He laughed like he had never listened to anything in his life. He said, "Come on then, show me." I showed him. I stood where he didn't expect. I breathed into his ear. I put my colder than cold hand into the hot pocket between his collar and his neck. He screamed as if I'd put a knife there. He pushed the woman so he could get to the door first. He fell in the hall and begged the floor to be a road. I watched him go. I didn't feel bad. I felt nothing you'd like me for. I felt tall. There was a winter a long time ago when the pipes sang all night and the wind taught the corners a new word. No one came for months. The house held itself. I spent the hours naming each creek and then taking its name away to see if it noticed. It didn't. I thought then, this is forever. I thought I could stop trying. I could let the dust be my only conversation. I almost did. But you know how the knot loosens when you almost forget it. The door opened. A boy came in out of the snow. He was too thin for the coat he wore. He said, "Hello," in a voice that had not learned how to be cruel yet. He shut the door behind him to keep the cold where it belonged. I could have been kind to him. I wanted to be. He made a small fire with the old wood in the scuttle. He talked to himself while his hands warmed, the way children do. He said his own name twice so he would remember it in the dark. I stood by the fire and forgot how not to love him. For a moment. He fell asleep on the bench with his cheek in a fold of his coat. I kept the wind from his neck. I let the flame stand straight. I did all the small things I could do. And when he woke, he said, "Thank you," to no one. He left a little bread. He left a little tea. He left me with that thank you like a star in a roofless sky. It went out. They all do. Time goes by. And now you're here. You walk in your own manner. You pause where the others pause. Your eyes go to the same places. You feel the same cold in the same spots. You're not special, and yet you're the only thing that moves that I can touch. So I will tell you the truth, because I'm tired of telling lies with locks and curtains and breath. I tried to be gentle. I tried to be a person still. I tried to make small kindnesses. I tried to be patient. I tried to whisper instead of shout. I tried to ask instead of take. I tried to be the shape of a memory you could bear. It didn't work. Fear is the only door that opens. Pain is the only language that doesn't need a tongue. When I push you hard enough, you answer. When I make the room wrong enough, you believe. When I take the picture down and break it at your feet, you say my name, even if you don't know it. When I send the mirror a face that is almost yours and almost mine, you don't sleep for 3 nights and you think of me. That's what I have left. You're thinking, you're shaking, you're leaving. You'll say I'm wicked. I won't argue. You'll say I was once human. I'll say I remembered it the way a man remembers a summer he can't prove. You'll say there must be another way. If there is, I asked for it and it didn't come. Time goes by. Some nights I can feel the person I was. He's close, he's kind, he says, stop, he says, wait, he says, don't do this, he says, this is not you. I say back, then come and be me for a while. He doesn't answer. He's busy being dead in a better place. So I do the thing that works. I do the thing that makes the room shout my name back at me. I do the thing that fills me for a breath and a half. I knock the glass, I slam the door. I lean with all I am against the warm living and I make them cold. I drag a nail along the wood, I stand at my bed. I put my mouth at the ear of the person who stayed too long and I say the thing they came to hear. I say, I am here. I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere, not ever. And they run. I watch them from the windows as they go. I watch the car lights leave a ribbon on the road. I watch the sky forget them. I watch the room close its eyes again. I stand in the quiet, and I am full and empty at once. I'm ashamed and hungry. I'm a man in a storm and a nail and a memory. I'm not finished. I'll never be finished. And there's only one thing that gives me heat in this winter that won't end. In the end, the cruelest truth is this: scaring them, breaking them, was the only thing that made me feel alive. Let your body sink further into the bed. Your breaths are slow. Breathe in for 4 seconds. Exhale for 4 seconds. Let your arms sink and let your legs sink as we drift into the next story. And now for the next tale, a tale called After Hours at Hagerty's. The night had grown long at Hagerty's. The lamps were burned down to their stubs. The fire at the hearth was no more than coals, snapping and sighing now and then as if tired from its own work. The floor smelled of spilled porter and smoke, and the only men left were the ones who never minded the hour, who liked the quiet after closing almost as much as the drink itself. They sat tight together at the corner table, pints gone warm in their hands, shoulders brushing. Their talk was low, not the booming talk of early evening, but the low kind. The kind that fills the room softly as if the building itself is listening. They'd laughed their fill already. The good stories had been told about fishing trips gone wrong, about women they never win, about cards lost and money found again by luck or sin. And now, with the laughter gone, the quiet had settled. It was the kind of quiet that asked for a darker story. One man leaned forward, his elbows on the table. His eyes slid to Brendan. "You've been quiet all night, smiling eye, but quiet. I'll bet you've a tale in you, Brendan, one you've been keeping." The others turned their heads the same way, slow as owls. Even Dick Hagerty, who'd heard every story in his pub 100 times over, raised his brow, and all eyes went to Brendan. He sat with his hand around his glass, thumb rubbing at the rim. His smile faltered, and for a long time he said nothing. Only the sound of the coals breaking was heard. At last he drew a breath. "I've one. I don't tell it often. Truth be told, I don't like telling it at all. It sits on me like a stone. But maybe tonight, maybe it's the time I let it out." The men leaned closer, each of them braced by drink, but sobered by his tone. Brendan's voice was low. "It was years ago, a winter's night, harder than most. Frost sharp in the hedges, ground iron with cold. The kind of night the air cuts at your chest, you know. I was walking home with Dick himself over there." He nodded across the table at the publican, who said nothing, only gave the smallest tilt of his head. "You all know him, a straight man, no time for nonsense. If it had been anyone else with me, you'd think I'd imagined it, but it was Dick. He was there. He saw what I saw, heard what I heard, and he'll not make a liar out of me." The men stirred a little. They knew Dick's reputation, hard as nails, not one for foolish talk. If he'd stood beside Brendan, there'd be weight to what followed. Brendan cleared his throat. "The night was cruel, no moon, no stars, just the white of our breath in front of us. The kind of dark that presses against you, you know, makes you feel smaller than you are. We kept our heads down, hands deep in our pockets, talking on nothing, only trying to beat the cold. And that's when it came." He stopped. He took a sip. His hand trembled slightly as he set the glass down again. "A voice," he said at last. "Thin at first, carried by the wind, then clearer, from the middle of the bog. Not a shout or a call, just a whisper that carried, 'Help, help me.'" The men around the table shifted in their seats. One made the sign of the cross without meaning to. We stopped. I looked at Dick. He looked at me. Neither of us had a word, but we both knew. We both heard it, no mistake. Not our minds playing tricks. A voice, a man's voice, faint and desperate. Brendan rubbed his palms together, slow. "We thought maybe someone had lost their way or lost their footing. You hear of it often enough. Folk gone into the bog, never to come out. So we went." He stared into the fire, his face pale. "I'll never forget the sound of our boots. At first hard on frozen ground, then softer, sinking a little. The earth not as sure. The air grew colder still, as if we were walking out into the mouth of something. The voice came again, closer. 'Help me, please.'" He paused again, his throat tight. There was a quiver in it, a shake that pulled at the gut, you know, like a man close to death pleading not to be left. And I tell you now, it was enough to turn your stomach. Still, we pressed on. The men leaned in, their glasses forgotten. So we came to a patch thick with brambles, twisted up together like iron wire, the kind of growth you wouldn't put your hand into for any money, and in the middle of it, a hollow, blacker than the night around it, a burrow into the earth. And that's where the voice came from. 'Help me.' One of the men muttered, 'Christ preserve us.' Brendan nodded, his eyes heavy. "I'd not have gone nearer, not for love nor money, not for any stranger, only—" He stopped. He took another drink. His hand shook as he set it back down. Only it was a voice I knew. I knew it the way a man knows his own name. It was Charlie, my brother. The men froze. Brendan's voice shook. I felt the world tilt under me. Me heart near stopped. I said to Dick, "That's Charlie, I know it anywhere." He stared at me, white as a sheet, thought I'd lost me wits. But then he heard it too, clear as anything. "Help me." And then Brendan's voice dropped to a whisper. There was a sound behind it. A growl, low, long, like an animal guarding its kill. It rose slow until it shook the air, and as we looked into the hollow, into the black, two eyes looked back, yellow, round, wide, not human, not animals, something in between. They glowed faint but certain, and the voice stopped. The growl rose instead. It wanted us closer. It wanted us to lean in. The fire cracked. No one moved. Brendan's eyes flicked to each man. We stood rooted. Dick gripped my arm so hard it near bruised. I swear if I hadn't, I might have stepped forward. The voice had such a pull, such a hook, like it wanted me more than the air itself. And maybe it did. One man, a newcomer to the group, who joined them for pints earlier that night, cleared his throat, trying for a grin but failing. So, was it Charlie then? Your brother playing a trick? Brendan turned his head slow. His face was white, his voice steady and low. Well, that's the thing. It couldn't have been. Charlie was gone, dead the winter before, out on that same bog. The men sat frozen. The coals gave a last sigh and collapsed in on themselves. Someone muttered, uneasy, almost to himself. Or maybe it wasn't him at all. Maybe it was something wearing his voice. You know what they say. No one laughed. No one spoke again. They sat with the silence, each man alone with the thought, while the dark pressed at the windows and the fire gutted low. Now let the fire go out, let the pub grow quiet, and let the story fade, like smoke that slips up the chimney and is gone. And now for the next tale, a tale called The Dreams of Emer Rowan. Emer Rowan was 23 when the dreams began. Her days were plain, work, home, sleep. Her nights were not. On the first night, in her sleep, she was walking inside a long, empty place. The floor was cracked, paint peeled in wide strips, curtains stirred in broken windows. Dust hung in the air like mist. Her shoes clicked, click, click, click. The sound ran up the walls and back to her. No other sound, no faces. She woke with her chest tight, the echo still in her head. And the second night, she returned. The same broken walls, the same drifting curtains. But now she heard whimpers, not loud or strong, old voices, weak and small, the sound of people too tired to cry. She whispered hello, no answer. Only the thin sound of suffering seeping from every side. She woke with her hand over her mouth, her breath shallow. On the third night, the whimpers rose to cries, frail voices sharp with fear, cracked and broken by age. They filled the place, they rattled the peeling paint, they clawed along her skin. She pressed her palms to her ears. It did no good. The cries forced their way through. Shapes moved far ahead, stooped, shuffling and bent, but she never caught them. She woke, shouting, her throat raw. On the fourth night, she smelled smoke. She heard fire crackle, though she saw no flame. The walls seemed to pulse with heat. The voices rose above the roar, frail and desperate. We trusted, but our skin burns, burning us alive. She ran. The halls stretched. Every step made the end further. No doors, no escape. Only the roar she could not see, the voices begging her to save them. She woke, gasping. The taste of ash clung to her tongue. The fifth night was silent, almost too silent. The walls peeled, the curtains stirred, but no cries came, no smoke, only her own steps, and then footsteps behind her. She turned, nothing. She walked faster. The steps matched her pace. She stopped. The steps stopped. And then, close to her ear, a whisper, soft and calm and smiling, but edged like a thin blade. Falcha. She woke with the word in her head and her teeth clenched hard. The dreams ended after that. She slept deep for the first time in weeks. No cries, no fire, only silence. Life brightened. She laughed again. She let herself think of simple things, shopping, washing, a walk in the evening. One thought stayed. Her grandmother. People used to say her grandmother had the sight, that she dreamed things, births, illnesses, a knock at the door the next day that no one wanted. Emer had never believed it, not really, but now she wondered, had the gift passed to her? Had the long place meant something, a warning? She tried to push it away, but it lingered. Her grandmother's shadow whispering through the bloodline. It felt like a revelation, a twist she had not expected. And one evening, a neighbor called over the wall. So, Cafferkey's your new boss, I hear? Emer smiled, papers clutched against her chest. Yep, going to meet me by the main door, show me around? The neighbor nodded. Cafferkey's a good friend, you'll be well looked after. The words eased her, safe, normal, a good friend, nothing to fear. And that night, Emer slept without dreams. Morning came clean. She walked to her new start, light on her feet, breathing easy. She reached the main door. She had never stepped inside before. And she went in and froze. The walls ran long and narrow, paint blistering in pale sheets. Curtains stirred in the faintest draught. Morning light stretched across the floor like water. It was a place from her dreams, alive now, not ruined yet, but the same. Old people shuffled past, some smiling, some muttered. Some stared blankly, their eyes gone to another world long ago. Emer stood still, her papers pressed to her chest, her breath shallow, her gaze locked on the long run ahead. Then a voice rang down the hall, warm and bright. "Hello, Mrs. Cafferkey." Emer didn't turn. Right behind her ear, "Fáilte." The hall is empty now, the whisper is gone, only your breath remains, slow and gentle. Let your eyes soften, or close them fully now. Let your jaw loosen, your shoulders sink. If these stories kept you company, you might leave a trace in the morning, a like, a word, subscribe, a share with a friend. But for now, the hall fades, the voice fades, and you're safe. You're drifting. Good night.